You have heard of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines and Coast Guard, perhaps even NOAA and the Space Force. But what uniformed service protects and promotes our nation's health?
Introducing the President of the United States. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, good morning, sir. This is Rear Admiral Forrest looking at the Acting Surgeon General, and I'm proud to introduce our team from Monrovia, led by my Acting Deputy Surgeon General.
It feels like this documentary is a way of saying thank you for their service. We do start at the origins and then focus on some of the epidemics that have happened over the course of the various decades. It's extremely informative. I like how it went through a timeline. One part of the timeline that really interested me was Tuskegee experiments, which a lot of people will say caused a lot of the distrust in the healthcare system with people of color because of the refusing to treat those in the Tuskegee experiment for the venereal disease in an effort to continue to research them, even though the treatments have been made available during that time. And for that to go on for 40 plus years and to have that many public health officials still decide that this research was more important than the lives of these people and the health of these people is very disheartening. And to think that the apology only came from the government decades even after it all took place. The timeline takes us through all of these various epidemics and gives you a sense of what the response was, all the way up to the most recent epidemic, which is COVID, which really brought to light a lot of the issues that exist within this public health system.
Incredibly well sourced. Everybody at the center of the piece are people that are really on the ground. There were a lot of incredibly high stakes that were reflected in the piece that I thought were a good reflection of the difficulties in doing the work and the lack of, I think, public knowledge about the type of work those people do, and that not just the history of the piece, but not just history of the service, but sort of the intent of what the service was supposed to be. I think there was a lot of ideas about how the public health service was supposed to be designed to help people unmask in a much better way. It was even built to help prisoners and not just people overseas or in war-torn areas, and how the impulse of the service is something that should be reflected more in society writ large. And I thought the piece had a really great sort of a philosophical and empathetic approach to such a serious and difficult issue, and it ended up making the piece very easy to get into, despite the difficult subject matter, because the people at the center of the piece were so passionate and dedicated to their work.
I loved the narration and the music that they chose for this. The narration, there was a lot of really cool emotion in her voice, and I thought it was fascinating to learn about the Commissioned Corps and learn more about the Surgeon General and kind of what his role was compared to what it is now in the public health service, and kind of how all of this came about, because what these healthcare professionals do is just absolutely invaluable. It's fantastic. I think that the filmmakers were really smart with how they did this. They incorporated a lot of old footage and old photographs, old video, but they added these graphics where they had a frame around some of the old photographs that made it look like it was still within the film strip. So I thought that was really cool. And then they would do a dial where they would dial it from where you go from 2022 all the way back to 1911. And I thought that was very clever, very engaging. The interviews were also engaging. Everything that people had to say within those interviews, it was interesting. It was educational.
I thought it was really interesting to see how much the Commissioned Corps encompasses and how much they deal with, from pandemics to natural disasters to the war on drugs. They're there in every aspect of public health and keeping people healthy, injury-free, taking preventative measures. Just they have their hands in everything, and that's why they're sometimes invisible, because they don't have just one service that they're offering there, in all these different branches of the government. I think this documentary did a really great job with their editing. They had some really creative editing in here. I especially enjoyed how they took us through the timeline of the public health service, how they had that animation there to explain the timeline and all the different times that the public health service stepped in and helped us. I also appreciated that they didn't just cover the good aspects, they covered the not so great aspects of the public health service, the more racist side of things with the Tuskegee experience. They didn't shy away from that. They talked about it and realized their mistakes and how we must never, repeat things like that, obviously.
A very engaging documentary with several testimonials to help us understand the evolution of public health efforts in USA. They talk about underserved, undocumented, and other people that normally don't get access to quality health, how they are sending and deploying help to address environment or pandemics or terrorist attacks and threats, and anything that affects human health in USA and overseas. I like the approach to universal health and prevention, meaning that it is way costly to attack as a disease than to prevent it, and how we need to take care of everyone so big diseases or pandemics don't affect us locally as much. I loved how they use the old footage and images for their storyline, and the title was appealing and quite appropriate once you see what invisible means to the people interviewed.
Really well formed for a documentary because they, kind of hook you with something really dynamic and interesting about the treatments that they were doing and what they were doing, and then they went back and explained the history and how it's changed and why it was formed in the first place. And I really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was informative, and it really made me interested personally, and I think that that's the best, especially when it's coming from a documentary, of if you can, have somebody watch it and get to the end of it and say, I learned something, it was really fascinating and interesting to me, it captured my attention, it's, something that I never thought about before, but now I have that knowledge. I think that that's kind of a win when it comes to these types of films.